Have you ever seen someone just lose it? An angry outburst that seems completely out of proportion to what just happened. Maybe a tiny comment sparks a massive fight. It's so easy to just write that off as, a bad temper. But what if there's a much deeper story going on? A story that science is just now beginning to fully understand.
And this right here, this is the key to the whole thing. The idea that this intense anger isn't the problem itself. It's actually the echo of a solution. It's a survival strategy that was absolutely necessary at one point, but now it's a strategy that's long outlived its purpose.
So this is the big question we're going to dive into today. We're going to unpack how those wounds from the past don't just fade away. We're talking about how they can physically reshape the brain and the nervous system, basically creating a blueprint for anger in adulthood.
Okay, so before we go any further, we need to get our terms straight. To really understand this connection, we have to be super clear about what we mean when we say trauma.
Now, the really important thing here isn't just the event itself, but its effect. The key word is overwhelms. The experience was simply too much for a child's developing brain to process, and it fundamentally shatters their feeling of being safe in their own world.
And, trauma isn't just one thing. Researchers use the term adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and it covers a pretty wide range of things. It includes the obvious stuff like abuse and neglect, but also the chronic stress of growing up in a home that's chaotic or threatening.
So how does all this actually get under the skin and cause lasting damage? Well, it happens through something called toxic stress. See, when a child's stress response is firing all the time and there's no safe, supportive adult there to help them calm down, that stress becomes, toxic. And it's not just a bad feeling. It physically gets in the way of how the brain is supposed to grow.
So we've talked about the experience of trauma. Now let's get into the biology of it. We're going to go under the hood and look at how toxic stress actually changes the physical architecture of the brain.
All right, so meet player number one, the amygdala. The easiest way to think about this part of the brain is as your own personal smoke detector or alarm system. Its one and only job is to scream danger whenever it senses a potential threat. Now, when a brain develops under toxic stress, this alarm system gets a serious and very problematic upgrade. It can actually grow larger, and it becomes hyper-reactive. The result? A brain that's constantly scanning for danger, that starts misinterpreting totally neutral things as threats. The alarm is basically set to a hair trigger.
Okay, so if the amygdala is the alarm that's screaming, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC, is supposed to be the braking system. This is the logical, rational part of your brain. Its job is to step in, assess the situation, and say, whoa, okay, amygdala, thanks for the heads up, but it's a false alarm. Stand down.
But here's the huge problem. Toxic stress messes up the development of the PFC. It becomes underactive. So think about it. You've got a supersensitive, hyperreactive alarm system and a weak, underdeveloped braking system. The alarm goes off, and there is literally nothing to pump the brakes.
And there's one more crucial piece of the puzzle, the hippocampus. You can think of this as your brain's librarian or its context processor. Its job is to file memories in the right place and to tell you, hey, that loud bang was a car backfiring. It is not the same danger you experienced in the past. You are safe right now.
Trauma is incredibly damaging to the hippocampus. It can actually cause it to shrink. And when its function is impaired like that, it just can't do its job of providing context. It completely fails to tell the difference between a past threat and present safety. And this right here is the biological root of what we call an emotional flashback. When the past doesn't feel like a memory, it feels like it's happening all over again.
So when you put all this together, you get the perfect storm. The amygdala screams threat, the PFC can't hit the brakes, and the hippocampus can't provide the context to let you know that you're actually safe. The most important thing to get here is that this reaction isn't a choice. It is the logical, predictable output of a brain that has been rewired for survival at all costs.
Okay, so we've looked at the hardware changes in the brain. Now let's talk about the psychological software that's running on this rewired system. What does it actually feel like to live inside this state of constant alert?
When we're faced with what our brain thinks is a major threat, we don't really get to make a conscious choice. Our nervous system has a few pre-programmed survival responses. You've probably heard of them. We can fight, we can run away, flight, we can freeze in place, or we can try to appease the threat, which is called fawning. These are automatic.
For a lot of trauma survivors, the nervous system basically gets stuck on one of these settings. And when fight becomes the default mode, that person's body is living in a state of perpetual readiness for a battle. This means that tiny everyday stressors get processed by the nervous system as if they were life or death threats, and that's what triggers that huge, disproportionate, angry response.
So how does this internal state of being stuck in fight mode actually look on the outside, in someone's daily life? Let's take a look at some of the real-world behaviors.
This is a really, really crucial distinction to make. On the one hand, you have normal situational anger. It's triggered by something clear, its intensity kind of matches the event, and then it goes away. But trauma-based anger, that's a whole different animal. The trigger can be something incredibly subtle. The intensity goes from 0 to 100 in a split second, and it can linger for hours or even days because the entire nervous system has been hijacked.
And this kind of anger can wear a lot of different masks. Sure, it can be those explosive outbursts we've been talking about, but it can also show up as a constant low-grade irritability, just a baseline state of being on edge. Or if showing anger directly was really dangerous in childhood, it can turn into passive aggression. It's a way to fight back without the risk of a direct confrontation.
So after hearing all of this, the most important question is pretty obvious. Can this be changed? Is someone just stuck with this wiring forever? And the answer from neuroscience is, thankfully, a very hopeful and very definitive no.
The key to all of this hope is an amazing property of our brains called neuroplasticity. It's just the scientific principle that our brains can and do change, forming new pathways and connections throughout our entire lives. It means the very same process that allowed trauma to shape the brain can be harnessed by healing experiences to reshape it, this time for safety and for peace.
But real, effective healing isn't just about talking things out. It really requires a dual approach. You need top-down therapies that work with the thinking brain, the PFC, to change beliefs and stories. But just as importantly, you also need bottom-up therapies that speak directly to the body and that survival brain, the amygdala. These therapies help teach the nervous system, on a physical level, that the war is finally over. So what we've learned is that this kind of intense, disproportionate anger isn't just random noise. It's a signal. It's a story about a past wound that's never fully healed. And that really leaves us with one final thought. Instead of judging the anger when we see it, in others or even in ourselves, what might change if we could learn to listen, with compassion, to the story it's so desperately trying to tell?